All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our show entitled It's Good to Know. Before anything else, please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Kimi Antonio, a freshman in Ateneo de Manila University, majoring in Communication Technology Management, a devoted musician, an aspiring artist, and most important of all, a registered voter, and your wonderful host for this webinar. Now, what is this It's Good to Know webinar we're having? Well, the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, or PPCRV as we are all familiar with them, is having this webinar as part of their initial voters education efforts. But what's interesting about this webinar is that it's a three-part technical series. So the presentations, the questions, and the discussions we'll have are all going to be focused on the technical aspects of our elections. So for the first part of our webinar series, our topic will be about the vote counting machine, or what we call the VCM. But before I introduce our speaker for this afternoon, let's just quickly have a getting to know you session, so that at least we all know who our audience is. So there are just some questions we'll flash and kindly put in your answers quickly. For those following us via live stream on Facebook, please feel free to write in your answers in the comment section. So for our first question, we actually have presented for you seems to be a bit of a technical difficulty, but no, allow me to read you the question. So for question number one, we're going to ask you, how old are you? Are you below 18 years old? No, still a young student of this country? Are you 18 to 25 years old? No, the Gen Zers, the 26 to 39 years old, the millennials, or are you 40 years old and beyond? And for our second question is, are you already a registered voter? That's either a yes or a no question. And for those who answered no, why exactly haven't you registered yet? No, we have multiple choices here. Actually, it says, I can't find the time. I'm worried about health and safety, which is actually very reasonable. Kasi, no, we're in a pandemic. Third question is, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to submit. Fourth choice is I actually don't plan to register. And fifth choice is like basta. Ano, not really participative. So we'll give you some time to answer this poll, and in a few moments we'll collect the results. Sige. While you guys are answering this survey, I hope you guys are enjoying this Saturday weekend. I hope you guys are relaxing. It's good to relax every once in a while, especially to the students out there. Ooh, we have a few questions actually. It asks, do we have to skip the poll if we answered yes in question three? And yeah, it says can proceed if answer is yes in two. No. I guess what matters right now is if you answered yes or no as a second question. And I guess if you can't submit for question three, just put the last answer, no, the basta. No, so if you answered yes in number two, and for three, just put the last one, the basta na talaga. Okay, so I hope you guys have answered the survey. Let's see what he said. Okay, so thank you everybody for answering that survey. Let's see if, okay, so we'll actually read out those results in a while. So later on, as we're listening to the presentation, please feel free to write your comments in our Zoom chat box. Or for those following us via live stream, write your questions in the comment sections. We'll try to answer as much as we could during our Q&A portion. And now, let me get on with introducing our speaker for this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a man with many hats. He is the Senior Executive Vice President, Chief Technology and Operations Officer, and Chief Transformation Officer of the Union Bank of the Philippines. He is also the Chairman of the Board for UBX Philippines, Union Bank's financial technology arm. On the weekends, he teaches digital transformation at the UP Technology Management Center and remains an active faculty member of the Asian Institute of Digital Transformation. Additionally, he has worked for the GSIS for 2 years as a Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer. He has authored Data Privacy and Cybercrime Prevention in the Philippine Digital Age, which discusses knowledge on how to secure online data and avoid becoming a victim of cybercrime. Recently, he's recognized as one of the 10 banking and financial technology leaders in the ASEAN and as Southeast Asia's Chief Technology Officer for 2021 by the European Global Banking Awards. Apart from this, he's also been named the Data Protection Officer of the Year for 2017 to 2018 and the Privacy Advocate of the Year for 2021 by the National Privacy Commission. And most important of all, he is one of the members of our board of trustees and an all-around amazing Tito. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mr. Henry Aguda.
Thank you so much, Kimi. Blessed day to all of you. It's a great Saturday afternoon. Ako nga si Tito Henry, a banker by profession and a professor by passion. I've been part of PPCRV for quite some time, and I'm glad to be here to educate you on need-to-know facts for this coming election season. For all the seasoned voters and volunteers here, voting has drastically changed since the 2010 elections due to innovations that seek to automate necessary processes by the Commission on Elections or COMELEC. After this session, you'll understand what the vote counting machine, or we'll now start calling VCM, is, and what are some of the responsibilities that are placed on us, PPCRV, in relation to this coming 2022 election. To start off this seminar, our goal is to educate you all about the election specific about the VCM. Apart from what is a VCM, we will also answer the questions, how will COMELEC prepare for the VCMs? And what are the challenges in running the VCMs? Ano nga ba yung VCM, di ba? Kapag pumunta po kayo sa presinto at bumoto kayo, isusulat niyo yung boto niyo doon sa balota, yung balota ay papasok niyo doon sa isang machine na tinatawag nating VCM. I-insert nyo po doon para mabilang yung balota nyo. Doon magsisimula yung pagtanggap ng boto nyo at pagsimula na ng pagbibilang. Noong 1998, nagkaroon tayo ng batas, Republic Act 9369. In-enable nito na gamitin tayo ng machine for automated elections. Ito ay para ma-improve ang manual elections na ginagawa na natin nung nakaraan pa. Tulad ng nasabi ko kanina, VCM ay papasok nyo ang balota para mabilang ang mga boto. Ang VCM ay merong optical scanning na babasa sa inyong mga boto once ipasok nyo ang inyong balota. Marami sa atin ay tinatawag itong Smartmatic. Kasi ang Smartmatic naman ang nag-supply ng VCM na makina sa COMELEC. Para bang ito yung naalala nyo dati, pag kukuha kayo ng picture, ang gagamitin nyo yung Kodak. So, ang tawag nyo sa pagpipicture ngayon, i-Kodak mo. So, may iba, tinatawag na Smartmatic yung machine. Pareho lang naman sa konteksto na yon. Yung VCM ay sinupply po ng Smartmatic. Noon kung naalala nyo, noong 2010 election, ang ginagamit natin, hindi VCM, ang tinatawag natin dati noon na linalagyan ng balota, PCOS. Ito yung tinatawag na precinct scan optical count machines. Pinalitan na po itong PCOS. Noong 2016, nagsimula ng palitan to ng tinatawag nating mga VCMs. And itong VCMs na to, ito rin yung gagamitin po natin sa 2022 election. Ngayon, tignan natin ang pagbabago sa VCM kumpara dun sa lumang PCOS. May mga nanonood ngayon na may kaalaman sa IT. So, may mga specs dito na magiging familiar kayo. Unang-una, yung random access memory niya, tinatawag na RAM ng VCM, it is now 32 times bigger. And yung external capacity niya for memory is around 512 times bigger na than the old PCOS. Also, they no longer use yung tinatawag natin na compact flash cards as its external storage media. They're now using the secure cards. They call them now the SD cards. So, kalimutan na natin yung CF, ang ginagamit na nila ngayon ay yung SD cards. This is to reduce issues brought about by bent pins during the installation of CF cards. So yun, may iwasan na natin yung mga problema na yun. Now, they can also charge its external battery while plugging into a power supply. So habang naka-plug yung power supply, pwede na rin mag-charge yung battery, hindi tulad nung nakaraang PCOS. The machine's capability for audio review of the votes to cater to people who cannot read or illiterate, and for those with the challenge sa mata nila. Meron na ring headphones and internal speakers, BCM. Also, to address the issues of digital lines, the machine is now able to detect stain, dirt inside the system, and alert the Board of Elections inspector of the problem. Adding to this, the new machine supports stronger encryption. Encryption po ay ginagamit sa lengguwahe ng mga software developer para maging secure yung data at saka yung code na pinatatakbo sa makina. So because of the encryption key for digital signatures, this increases the security for the program. Now, come election day, the system will be requiring 3 digital signatures to operate the new VCMs and transmit the election results. This means that each of the BEIs will now be given an I-button device, each one having its own unique digital signature. Now, the machine also has a ballot segregation system which prevents it from reading ballots customized from another precinct. The system can also detect preloaded results. Hindi po natin matatanggap yung resulta, linode na kaagad. As with the previous model, the new VCMs are also capable of producing the Voter Verification Paper Audit Trail, or VVPAT. Also, voters may also review the results of their votes from the VCM screen once the ballot is fed to the machine. The machine can return the ballot to the voter if he or she is not satisfied. The voter, however, is not allowed to change his or her vote, as multiple shadings in one position will be read as an overvote. For authentication, ballots will come with a special UV mark reflected by a UV light from the machine. Kasama po yan dun sa additional security feature sa coming 2022 election. Now, how does the COMELEC prepare for the VCMs? Bago magsimula ang botohan, mayroon tayong tinatawag na FTS, or Final Testing and Sealing. Mock ballots will be marked and fed to the machine. Tapos, ang VCMs natin ay mag-run ng diagnostics upang tignan kung lahat ng parte niya ay nagwo-work ng maayos. Titignan ng VCMs kung mayroong issues na kailangang i-address bago magsimula ang botohan. So, meron siyang pre-testing and meron siyang checking bago i-deploy ang VCM sa eleksyon. So, nakikita niyo ba ang 6 steps sa screen? Yan ang kabuuan ng procedure. During the FTS, there will be an end-to-end test pa of the process, from the initialization of the machines to the voting to the feeding of the accomplished ballots to the VCM, and until the printing of the election returns. Each and every step of the way, people will be monitoring that the process proceeds without any intervention from outside. After the process, the COMELEC will then seal the lock and then unlock the VCMs and will not be opening it again until the start of the polls. Now, ano ang bawal gawin during the testing and the actual election, on the actual election day? First, connecting any device to the VCM console port during FTS and election day. Bawal po yan. Connecting any device to the transmission port before transmission. Only the power cable must be connected to the VCM during voting. Replacing SD cards and other components after FTS has been completed and ports have been sealed. Bawal din ang interchanging SD cards. SD cards are assigned to particular clustered precincts, so you cannot mix and match them. And lastly, sharing pins and I-button keys to non-DEI members. This is where the security credentials are kept. Now, ang nasa isip nyo ngayon ay kung bakit sila bawal. Simple lang. These are all potential ways for people to cheat the electoral process. That's why COMELEC and their providers have taken pains to make sure na hindi mangyari itong mga to. Now, what are some of the challenges encountered in running the VCMs or might be encountered in running the VCM? First, VCM fails initialization. It basically means for whatever reason, the interface didn't load or basically the machine didn't start properly or as intended by the user. When this happens, you need to, one, power test, power off the VCM, cut the tie wraps in the SD card slots, and make sure both SD cards are installed into the VCM eject and reinsert SD. Hindi naman po kayang gagawa niyan. Ang gagawa po niyan is yung mga authorities that are running the election in the precinct. But you can observe. Now, if the VCM reads the ballot, this problem happens when the ballot is not scanned properly. That's the message, misread ballot. If it happens on the screen, this is what you do. First, do a visual test. Make sure that the ballot was inserted as it should be, or tear or spots in the areas of the security marking. Second, do a ballot diagnostic test. Refeed the ballot and try it in different operations. Clean the scanner using official cleaning sheet. What if the problem is invalid ballot? If the ballot is not configured for the VCM, a message saying invalid ballot will appear. When this happens, there's a red button that says return. You press it, insert a different ballot. If the other ballot is valid, validate the previous ballot that is being cast. Refer to the ballot ID. Verify if the cluster precinct and the ballot ID indicate the ballot machines with the clustered precinct ID display in the upper right screen of the VCM. Press the icon to print status report. That should resolve the problem. Now, what if it's a fake duplicate ballot? This is already self-explanatory. If it's fake, basically, if the system detects a fake ballot, then it will not accept the ballot. One of the ways you can do is verify the ballot inserted as a UV security markings. Now, you have a UV light there that you can pass on to the ballot and it will show if there are the security markings that are necessary for it to be valid. Now, they also have paper jams. This is already self-explanatory, but what do you do when there's a paper jam? Slowly pull the ballot out from the ballot entry slot. Remove the VCM from the ballot box. If the ballot box is caught at the bottom of the VCM, pull out the ballot gently. Insert another ballot and continue feeding. If no ballot is caught at the bottom of the VCM, wobble the ballot box, remove its cover, and push down the ballot inside the bin. Check and remove if there is any obstruction in the ballot exit slot of the VCM. Check and fix the alignment of the VCM ballot slots to the ballot box slot entry. Check the orientation of the metal guide inside the ballot box. Again, this procedure po, you can observe. There will be authorized personnel who will do the problem resolution during election day. Now, ano ba ang gagawin pag talagang yung buong VCM ang nasira? Nangyayari po yan. In the previous elections, there have been delays in the voting because of problems with the old PCOS. That can also happen with the VCM. These are the things that have been authorized by COMELEC for people to do if the VCM fails. Option number 1, entrust ballots to the Electoral Board. The Electoral Board will inform voters that they may proceed with casting the votes without being issued a receipt that comes from the machine. Now, unfortunately, by next election, most probably we're still in some sort of pandemic. wishing that by end of this year, the virus has been resolved. But just in case meron pa po yan next year, kailangan pong mabilis ang pasok at labas natin sa presinto so that we minimize the spread of any virus should the virus still exist by then. That's why you have option number 1. Meron din naman pong option number 2. Wait for the VCM to get repaired. The Electoral Board will inform voters that they may wait until the equipment is repaired or gets replaced before casting their votes. Nasa assessment na po yan ng mga tao na magbabantay ng BCM kung matagal i-repair ang BCM. In which case, they will proceed with option 1. Kung marirepair naman ang BCM ng mas mabilis, they will now proceed with option 2. Dagdag sa dalawang option, temporarily place shaded ballots inside the envelope for rejected ballots, and half-torn official ballots and other half-torn unused official ballots and counted official ballots. Now, on the printing side, quick reminder lang sa mga tao, there are 7 copies of the results which will be printed by the City Municipal Board of Canvassers. It is mandated under the law that 1 copy of the 7 results of the Certificate of Canvass shall be given to the citizen's arm designated by the Commission of Election. Tayo po yon. This is for the purposes of media-based unofficial count, which is, in this case, PPCRV can do. This is part of our responsibility. So for all our volunteers, be vigilant about it and don't forget that that's part of what we are expected to do. And that's it. Back to you, Kimi. What do you think? Maybe there are questions that we can take so that we can understand more the VCM.
Yeah, definitely, Tito Henry. Thank you so much. And before that, let's just say na as a first-time voter, I definitely know more now to understand how the VCM really plays the most crucial role during elections. Na? So yes, we have questions on our chat box and also on Facebook, and I'll be reading them to you shortly. But before that, I'd like to ask my own questions. Po. So, Tito Henry, it was presented a while ago that we have 2 options kapag nag-malfunction yung VCM. So with option 1, ballots will be entrusted to EBs and voters would not be given a receipt. So, and then with option 2, voters will wait for the VCM to be fixed. No? So I just thought that if we will proceed with option 1, like hindi po ito nagbibigay ng opportunity para mandaya or like to cheat po.
Well, magandang tanong yan, Kimi. There are trade-offs to both options. So as I mentioned earlier, these are the only options that were allowed by the COMELEC. Option 1, you are right. There may be a chance of electoral fraud pero hindi maaabala ang mga botante. Kasi hindi na nila hintayin maayos yung BCM. Ibibigay na lang nila sa authorities inside the polling station. We have to take note that this we might still, as mentioned earlier, be living in a pandemic situation. And we need to get people in and out of the voting places as quickly as possible. With option 2 naman, there are no certainties kasi on how fast they can fix the VCM. If it's a easy fix, I guess it will take them a few minutes to maybe maximum 1 hour, and they can resume the normal automated voting. But the problem is pag tumagal siya. So maring isang araw ang lumipas at hindi pa kayo makakaboto dahil wala pa yung VCM. So kailangan meron kang backup na option. And it so happens that could be option number 1.
Oh, okay. So yung follow-up question naman po. So if you were the one to decide, Tito Henry, what option would you choose?
Oh, that's another good question. I think I would choose option 2 as my first go-to option. Titignan muna natin kung mabilis lang bang maayos yung BCMs. Kung matagal pa din ito na maayos, then saka ko lang pupuntahan yung option number 1. But I will make sure that the election board would follow the proper procedures. That's why it's very important for our volunteers to know how problems are resolved during election day so that they can observe and they can report.
Oh, sige. Thank you. I have another question naman po, not as long as the other one. So, Would you say po that the use of VCMs are a big improvement to the way we used to cast votes? And kung may magagawa pa din po ba ang mga tao against cheating po?
Wow, yeah, yan. That's another great question. Yes, malayo na ang narating natin in terms of the way of voting, in terms of technological advancements. Itong automated system natin ngayon ay malayo sa manual voting and counting na ginagawa dati. VCMs would drastically improve counting time. As I mentioned earlier, in-upgrade na yung memory tsaka storage niya. So mas mabilis na yung bilangan. And would prevent yung mga nakawan sa balota na maaring maganap dati. As for dayaan, mas mahihirapan na mandaya ngayon. Ang VCMs ay may advanced software that can detect fake and duplicate ballots. At the same time, part of PPCRV's mandate is to do code review. And we have experts that have already seen how the software is secure and how encryption has been done. Now, meron at meron pa ding magagawa kung magkakaroon ng collusion by the volunteers and the electoral board. But the VCMs lessens the possibilities of electoral fraud. At saka nandyan po tayo sa PPCRV. Knowing how the process should go allows our volunteers to observe properly and to identify possibilities of people trying to defraud the election.
Oh, sige. Thank you po, Tita. And then we have a question po here from our Zoom. So what is the biggest improvement of the VCM from its predecessor, the PCOS machine?
Okay. So I mentioned earlier the specifications. It's really improved a lot. The RAM or the random access memory increased by 32 times. So that allows for the machine to process things much, much faster. At the same time, the external memory can hold more. It's 512 times greater than the old PCOS. And also, I think the feature of the machine being able to detect dirt and stain within itself is a great feature. Kasi it prevents now machines from breaking down during the election by being able to detect problems ahead of the issues. I remember that a lot of PCOS machines malfunctions because of this, and that caused a lot of delays during the old election. This dirt detecting feature of the VCMs can save us a lot of time kapag election na.
Ayun. So thank you. It's nice to see, no, like how technologically we progressed since the old machines, no? So to connect with that, we have another question po from our Zoom chat. There are a lot of indigent people in the Philippines who might not know how to interact with an advanced machine like VCM, no? So how would this be addressed kaya?
Well, the machine itself is capable for audio review of votes for people who cannot read and for those who are sight impaired. At the same time, we also have officers that can help them during the election period. And our volunteers can also provide some information to the illiterates and those that are hard at seeing. So the machine, the new VCMs have already taken them into account.
Okay, so we'd also like to add to our viewers to help us answer more of our questions. We'd also like to introduce Mr. Romel Bernardo and Dr. William Yu to the panel here. So yun. So here's another question from Facebook. Oh, this is a nice question. Is there a way to rig the VCMs?
Wow. So, wow, that's a very tough question. And people may have thought about it a lot. But the answer there, it is going to be very hard to read them. All VCMs possess an advanced software meticulously developed for the purpose of counting votes and preventing electoral fraud. And I'm glad that Doc William and Romel are also in the call right now because they're the ones who are really the experts in terms of the system that been deployed. Meron din other physical security measures like the prohibition to eject or connect anything to the VCM as part of the don'ts that I've mentioned earlier. There are also key officers who hold pins and keys to be used for the machine. The presence of these key officers is needed for the machine to operate. With this said, sobrang secure ang VCMs natin. And I cannot imagine at this point that somebody can successfully rig through the VCMs.
Oh, that's really interesting na po.
Yeah, and
I'm
if if
sige.
I may add, Kimi, so this is Doctor Yu. So just a quick adding to what Henry just mentioned. It is also important to recognize that this is a system, right? So the VCMs itself are secured, but also Henry mentioned the process, the I button keys, the BEIs. Well, uh, election board members are also part of the overall security. So there are layers of security, and if you want to break the system, you have to break all of those layers. So not just the machine, you also have to compromise the people at the site, then the volunteers din in ng site. One of the proposals that we're actually making to Congress is to allow people to take videos during the site, and which is also quite important for us, because once you're able to take videos, it's also harder to, you know, to do something that you're not supposed to be doing. So those are some of the few things that, it's quite secure now, but it can also benefit from more security. Okay.
Ooh, okay. That's really nice, no? Really thought-provoking, especially since elections is coming up. And I'm seeing in the Zoom chat box that there are so many more questions. Also here in Facebook. Pero no, unfortunately, that's really all the time we have to answer questions. Actually, no, there are more questions here na pwede pa. Sige. Here, for 2022, electoral boards will be able to digitally sign election returns generated by VCMs for the first time. So the question is, will this complicate the poll workers' use of the VCMs? And what challenges should they anticipate, if ever? Po?
And so
Oh, go
I
ahead,
have a
William.
question there. Yeah.
Yes, thank
So
you.
the change in the 2022 elections is that each of the EBs or poll workers will actually generate their own signing keys. In the past, kasi the past 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019 elections, each poll worker was actually assigned the key. So they did not generate it themselves. So the I button keys are actually in the package that contains the ballots and some of the election paraphernalia. But in 2022, what will happen is way before the election, the poll workers will actually be enrolling and creating their own keys. So that process has actually started already. The DepEd and the DICT have already signed a memorandum of understanding to work on this, and that allows basically each of the poll workers to have their own keys. Now, will it complicate the process? Well, the process in election day will be the same, except that instead of getting the key from the machine, na naka-package siya with the machine, each of the EBs will actually be carrying the keys that they generated by themselves. Now, there will be a complication in the process in the enrollment of the keys in the first place, because you have to do that before the election. But during election day itself, the process will actually be roughly the same, except for the fact that they will be carrying their own keys.
Sige. Our next question naman po from Lino Atienza. I think you kind of answered this a while ago, pero he says, is it possible for the VCM transmission in the process of canvassing to be hacked, ambushed, or altered by separate or hidden VCMs or master machines as reported during the last elections? Tas may follow-up question din po siya na, could the proposed hybrid election system be more secure from frauds and alterations, manual voting at precinct level, and then electronic canvassing po?
I think I'll take the first question and I'll repeat my answer. With all the security features and additional improvements that were included in the new VCMs, the hijack scenario may be a remote possibility. But everything is in the realm of possible. Pero that is something that the VCMs have taken into consideration. On the hybrid, I think I will defer to Doc William on the hybrid scenario.
Thank you, Henry. So, just to add, so I'd like to reiterate Henry's answer for point number one, and we will have a separate session that will be presented by Romel Bernardo. I think either 2 or 3 weeks from now, that will discuss the audit process that we do. So, in the event there is a shadow VCM or a ghost VCM that is included in the system, we should be able to track that with our parallel count process, right? So not only are there controls within the system itself, there are also controls that we as poll watchers are able to do. Now, with respect to hybrid, it always helps. It always helps to it always helps to have more checks and balances. Now, one of the things that I saw with the hybrid bill that can actually be done right now is basically increasing the number of all audited polling places. So you can actually, for example, right now, I think the required RMA precincts is only one per congressional district, which in the last election they did it one up to a proportional number, so 1 to 3 per congressional district, depending on the congressional district size. Now, if we want to increase transparencies, we can simply increase that number. So we can still use an all automated system. But if we want greater transparency, say in particular areas, what we can do is we can increase the number of precincts subject to RMA for the additional checking. Right. So this provides a greater level of transparency. And the current version of the bill kind of is moving in that direction. But then again, I can't answer all types of hybrid kasi alam naman natin maraming klaseng hybrid systems, right? So I'm just referring to the latest one that I saw. But definitely in that particular case, we can just subject more precincts to random manual audit. Thank you.
Sige, thank you so much for those answers. And there are a lot of questions pa, pero unfortunately, that's all the time we really have to answer your questions. But yeah, no worries. Just continue following us on Facebook and Twitter, and then we'll try to unpack your questions and pressing concerns there. So before we close, to give us a few words of inspiration and that needed push. Now that's great because something as soft as inspiration and something as hard as a push, I'd like to call on the chairperson of PPCRV, Ms. Myla Villanueva.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Good afternoon sa lahat ng taga-subaybay natin. I'm seeing na from Luzon to Mindanao and the Visayas, we have some participants po sa episode nito ng Good to Know. This is our first one, but it will not be our last one. And please get in touch with us for your feedback kung ano po ang mga topics na dapat nating bigyan ng pansin so that we can make our educational series, our voter education series more relevant to you and to the work of our volunteers. I'd like to thank Henry Aguda, Dr. Yu. These are the best minds in the industry po. I'm very proud po of our board in PPCRV, including Mr. Romel Bernardo, who's here, who really study and follow kung ano po yung mga nangyayari sa COMELEC at binabantayan po natin yan ng gusto. And I hope that you can tell your friends and other volunteers po na pwede niyong mapagsamihan na tuloy-tuloy po ang ating voter education series sa mga technical aspects ng election. And sometime po in July or August, we will be doing our voter education all the way to the dioceses po. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your weekend. God bless, and I hope to see you soon. Please register. Do not forget. And thank you again to everyone for sharing your afternoon with us. God bless. Thank you.
Sige, thank you so much, Tita Myla. Thank you so much din, Tito Henry, Tito William, and Tito Romel. So, and to everyone, before we end, we actually have the results of the poll we took a while ago. So For question number one, actually, no, how old are most of you? Below 18 years old, it's only 2%. 18 to 25 years old, it's 28%. 26 to 39 years old, it's 17%. And 40 years old and beyond, that's our majority, which is 53%. No? And then for number two, are you already a registered voter? And it's glad to know that a lot of us are, 89% of us are registered voter. And then for number three, for those who answered no, why haven't you registered yet? Aside from the last option na kasi basta, the most prevalent answer is actually 15%. I'm worried about health and safety. And at this time, it's perfectly reasonable kasi it's a pandemic after all. Okay, so yeah, to those who haven't registered, no, just experience. I've actually registered during the pandemic. First time register po ako. 18 years old, just turned 18 last year, and I was very excited. And I was glad to know naman that the precincts where we had to register to vote, they followed naman social distancing rules. No, I didn't feel at harm in any way. There was equal space among us, so and it was fairly quick and easy. No, I thought it would be long, no long lines, but no, they really took into mind our safety, especially in this time. So I'd say take the earliest opportunity to go out and register to vote. Thank you. So with that, before we end, there's a survey that will flash on your screens. And we'll also put a link to the survey in the comment section on Facebook. And please kindly accomplish. Thank you very much for that. And to end everything off, I hope it's been a truly good afternoon to all of you. See you next Saturday for part 2 of our It's Good to Know webinar series, wherein we will have Dr. William Yu to answer the question, how does transmission of votes happen? Diba? Interesting question. So, once again, I'm Kimi Antonio, your host for this webinar, encouraging all of you at home to register to vote, especially the youth like me, as we now have the elections in our hands. So once again, thank you for tuning in and see you next week. Goodbye, everyone.